Hi, I'm Andy, and in this short video, we're going to go over a workshop that we're planning for the near future. The workshop's all about what is your experience with safety. We are not going to be talking about accidents and incidents, but instead the experience that comes from professional interactions. So many organizations are struggling to transform health and safety into a catalyst for innovation and growth. On the other hand, many organizations are struggling with things like anxiety, frustration, or even anger that comes from those professional interactions. All are looking for how do we improve the way that we deliver safety services to our organization. So, in a workshop called From Burnout to Brilliance, we're looking at successfully leveraging employee experience in the context of your safety experience. But why? Why would we be talking about employee experience? I wanted to share with you some of the results that the big academic organizations, the big consultancies, are sharing with organizations right now. So, according to Gallup, a good employee experience is worth 147% improvement in earnings per share. Harvard Business Review see a decrease in employees' turnover by some 40%. Forrester Research say a good employee experience translates to 1.3 times improvement in customer satisfaction. MIT Sloan say we see twice the revenue growth. Bain and Company, 21% improvement in profitability. The Journal of Occupational Health Psychology, to talk about safety, see a reduction of 48% in safety incidents. The National Safety Council say a good employee experience means you're 5 times less likely to have an accident. So, where do these results come from? So, we're looking at this in a very practical way, and we're going to go through the science of engagement. We're talking about enduring motivation, where that comes from. We're going to cover how to listen to the stories that employees tell us so that we can learn strategically. Importantly, how do we gain C suite support? And how do we measure the impact? And in fact, are we actually making a difference? In terms of neuroscience, our brain is a very lazy thing. It hardwires assumptions based on our past interactions. So, in terms of safety, if you look at your past interactions, they lead to your assumptions about how future interactions would go. And that's inside the neuroscience. So, we're familiar with trust, fear, joy, and curiosity. But how do we figure out how our interactions develop those emotions? After we understand that, we're going to look at shifting compliance to enduring motivation, shifting the way safety works by aligning it with purpose, meaning, mastery, and autonomy. How do we gain the C suite support? Very simplistically, the C suite wants to know what are we going to do more of that makes us better at what it is that we do as an organization. So, we're going to cover that in some detail. Listening to learn strategically, we know that the stories that groups tell each other tell us how to behave, who to trust, who not to trust, but they also reveal how to help, how to support, how to grow, and how to learn. In terms of metrics, it's important that our philosophy on what we measure measures the value of the interactions and growth, not transactions, not action closeout, certainly not LTIR. So, in terms of the agenda, firstly, practical application of science, the reasons why we aren't or are engaged with the department or its services. We're going to look at how we discover the true values the department operates by and your personal alignment with that. We're going to do a practical exercise on measuring psychological distance. Basically, how important is the subject and how much value do we get from the interactions? We're then going to look at the brain chemistry of connection that comes out of those two to connect emotions to the behaviors that we see. In terms of motivation, we're going to figure out how a department helps others, helps themselves, or helps the organization, because that's how we find out if we're aligned on purpose or not. So, what does purpose mean to an organization, to the society that we are part of, and specifically to the department? Meaning and autonomy, how do we understand why we feel good when we contribute the way that we want to contribute? Where does that come from? Finally, mastery. Why are we curious about certain things and not others? That leads us on to the C-suite, how to talk to leadership. The headline here, how do we add value with C-suite engagement? We certainly don't want to engage the C-suite in something that they don't perceive as a value-added activity. So they are humans, they are accountable, they have plans and ideas and a role to play. How do we ensure that the C-suite are in character when we gain their engagement? So the first steps to gain engagement, we'll run an exercise on that, understand the language and how to connect that to purpose and values. Listening to learn, we're going to look at the narrative that exists within the organization, stories that people tell each other. By digging out the beliefs that are in those stories, we can understand how they drive culture. We'll then analyze those stories to understand how those define engagement or disengagement. And then we're going to run an exercise on creating the story of the future and how to tell stories that deliver that. Like we said earlier, metrics matter, but the philosophy has to be motivational metrics, numbers that we understand and how we influence. We're going to go through a case study on tracking capacity to deliver performance. In other words, how do we grow the capacity to deliver better performance? So, in summary, we're going to explore experience as a source of engagement. We're going to understand the ingredients of enduring motivation. We're going to link engagement with motivation and well-being. And we're going to start the change. Throughout the exercises, we're going to generate action plans and micro experiments that help you deliver this. And ultimately, we're going to be a resilient organization, higher performing, because we're going to focus on having a good employee safety experience. Look forward to the workshop.